While most quantum companies are still pitching theory, D-Wave's already running the first leg of the triathlon, and they're winning. With a 220% spike in usage, there's real world tests that I got to see this past weekend from Ford to Japan Tobacco, and they had some bold claim about decreasing blockchain energy use by 1,000% or increasing the efficiency. And also, they're simulating quantum. So why would they simulate 2 qubit gate quantum as well? One thing to consider. I got to talk with Alan Baretz just for a second there. I got to briefly meet him. And it was great to meet him. But also at the same time, he had this comment that he made that was really interesting, where he said that the rate at which we're growing in quantum and need for quantum is only going to get bigger as AI progresses, as the data centers that are using tremendous amounts of energies, they will become less of a choice for businesses as opposed to using quantum annealing hardware and their cloud service that is performing tasks with massively more efficiency and speed. So when you look at the questions that you're asking about, how can you increase the amount of money that you're making in a business? Well, if you know, time is money, and in order to get, let's say, more cash, you have to, provide more service faster and better. And when it comes to the technology that D-Wave's implementing and sharing with these businesses, there's a few big businesses that were involved. We saw Boeing in a recent contract. There was Anduril was there as well, and got to meet a lot of different executives from different companies that were there working with D-Wave and looking at what was possible with the system. Now, when we look at QBTS, one thing to consider is their recent earnings. Their balance sheet has looked okay. They had this revenue here, 27% in quarter two. They were starting to increase that revenue, and it dropped a little bit quarter three, but then we just saw it get back up there to 2 million. One really interesting thing about the financials, because I like to look at the balance sheets. I know that there's a lot of hype around different companies, and it always comes down to me with like the people, the partnerships that they have, and the cash that they're actually bringing in. There was some talk that the revenue that we're about to see in the coming quarter is going to be reflective of the fact that they have again increased their customer base massively over the last few years. So we could see they like that new one, just Boeing right there. There's a Boeing contract. There's some potential. I mean, always NASA is there as well. They're working with NASA, and NASA's contracts are ever increasing as well as they continue to sign contracts with D-Wave every 2 years, I believe it is. And when I was sitting there, I was having dinner. I was talking with some people that here on the channel that follow D-Wave, and one of the things that really stood out to me about all of the different opinions at dinner when I was talking with the Quantum Bull, got a chance to have a big interview there as well that we filmed that you guys got a little piece of. I would say the number one thing that came out of this was that they are a quantum computing company that's way further ahead from a commercial standpoint, from a business standpoint, than any other quantum company in the world. And so when you look at any quantum company, you ask yourself, are they actually plugging into business? They're using some applications that are being used today, and that's why you most likely are going to see a revenue increase here, and that is going to be a factor. Now, it's still a little in the red. Balance sheet looks okay, but I think that we're going to see those profit margins increase. We're just going to have to take a close look. Now, when it comes to the outlook on D-Wave Systems, and you take a look at their site, you get a better idea of what it is that they're offering. So they have this article here, first to demonstrate quantum supremacy on useful real-world problems. The real-world problems that they're solving are related to things that have millions and millions of variables, or tons of variables that you wouldn't otherwise want to even compute with GPUs. So do they do what GPUs cannot? Maybe. I would say with GPUs, you have so much more uh, use out of getting millions of GPUs basically to run some of the problems that you would run with a fraction of that with quantum. So maybe it's not that it can't be done with GPUs solely, but by implementing based on the claims and the results that we're seeing with the efficiency of D-Wave, you can get results that would otherwise take way more computing power from GPUs and not to mention a lot more money. You get those same results with way less energy costs and even faster using D-Wave systems. And that's basically what we came away from the conference with, is that that's why these companies are exploring. Does it work for every business? Not really. Wouldn't make sense unless you have, again, so many variables. Like if you're just tracking your balance sheet or your sales numbers, GPUs are fine. In fact, the difference in cost is probably nothing. But if you're, for example, building an app like the app that we have, Mercatus, that we're recently getting out into beta, you have all of these different assets, and every asset has analysis for each time frame, and every time frame has different variables that are considered, from the news to the technicals to, again, the financials, and all the different numbers, all the different tweets and what everybody's saying, the government contracts. When you start to consider all those variables and what that means for each individual time frame for each asset, and then you have thousands of assets, in running those systems through our AI models, I was racking up a bill with AWS. But by looking at the solutions that D-Wave can offer, I believe it might be even a solution for me as a company that runs lots of data. So I think that I'm personally going to be using it, and I'd like to document what it would be like to use this cloud service and how that looks for you as someone that's an entrepreneur, maybe building a business, and what that looks like. So again, not just for investors and traders here. We do go live each morning. If you want to watch me trade live, I'm there in Stockmates, that second link in the description. But outside of that, we're also here for entrepreneurs, for people that are looking at the tech and looking at what's possible with the company. And I just want you guys to know that. So if you enjoy those things, you want to look at this, maybe space tech, as well as AI, semiconductors, all that stuff, make sure to like and subscribe down below. So the news, again, looking pretty good. Saw some good investors that I believe were talking ambitiously about potentially using D-Wave, and we're talking about companies that work with Fortune 500 companies that they weren't actually fully able to disclose, but that I was able to get some pretty good inside looks at the type of use cases for where D-Wave is going. And what I can tell you is that the solutions make a whole lot of sense. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some partnerships here announced with some big players, like possibly Palantir or that Anduril. I mean, Anduril was there. They had two people there, or possibly Amazon, something like that. They had some people, some consultants that work with AWS that were there that I got to meet. So what I could tell you is that there's some use cases that people are saying, I wonder if I can do this with less computing power used and D-Wave, or amazing computing power, less energy cost, and people are looking at D-Wave. The cash and the financials looked okay, but I think that's something we could potentially see improve. From a trading standpoint, kind of looking at the chart, let's take a look at what the chart really looks like. We go to our quantum AI watch list. Now, one of the things I want you guys to realize is whenever we are trading a stock, we have four of the technical kind of things that stand out usually. First is the trend. Recently, we had this support right here get broken and this new trend develops. So that's kind of the first thing. Now you got this new trend developing that's a little bit downward, and you have maybe a level right here, this previous resistance, previous support there. So that's first thing with the trend. The second thing we're looking at in the technicals is what do all indicators seem to be indicating? Well, first we could look at our basic indicators. RSI looking oversold, MACD oversold. We saw some sell-offs after market close due to some more tariffs. Not necessarily big impact on QBTS per se, but about a 20% hike on China and a 10% hike on almost every single country in the world for tariffs, except for Mexico and Canada, which they're still in negotiations. But as you can see, RSI, that's something we look at. It looks like a buy. MACD looks like a buy. But a stock, this is the third thing. Overall direction has a greater chance of continuing the direction it's going than reversing. So right now, as you can see, it is going down. Maybe it recovers, but the next level of fairly strong support is right here around $5.50. So if we see that sell off, or just simply a continuation, has a better chance of going down than recovering. So I would just keep that in mind. However, when you look at that, you got to consider time frames. The overall time frame and their overall direction does look pretty good. So near term could be sell off, but again, long term, most likely, I mean, based on what we just talked about, we'd see an increase. So just keep that in mind. Shorter term traders and then longer term investors to consider. And then the fourth thing we're really looking at, like one of the last things with this chart here, is going to be kind of the plan, the profit of what we could see happen. So again, I think this is a level that it could bounce. If it bounces, maybe there is a resistance here. See this previous resistance that it's at, and sometimes previous resistance, or oftentimes, it acts as a support. So it's possible at this level here, there is a resistance right here that it could bounce at around $6.60. So we'll see. But if it does bounce, then the next level would be up into here, about 17% gain. Otherwise, if it doesn't bounce, we're looking down here, and we'll look for maybe a buy opportunity around $5.50. But we'll be watching it close at market open. And again, if you want to watch me trade live, it is that second link in the description to join us tomorrow at market open. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed. If you do have comments on D-Wave, leave them below. I'm quite excited about some of the future of potentially using their cloud service as an entrepreneur myself. From an investment standpoint, long-term looks fairly good. The short-term looks quite volatile, and I would be cautious in making any trades. But again, that's where opportunities can present themselves. But if you're just a beginner, you want to add more patience, really make sure that you have more confirmation of a reversal before getting into any of the short-term, near-term trades. So just keep that in mind as a beginner. Again, that's one of the things we focus on inside of StockMate. So it's down below if you want to join us. Now, fire your thumbs up, hit that like button. I really do appreciate you all. And if you enjoyed, do consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.